This is Youth Work, a podcast about youth workers delving into their journey of how they got into youth work.
Hi everyone, welcome to This is Youth Work. This is the podcast that follows the journeys of youth workers across Wales, and this particular episode is a men's mental health special. And before you listen, just a bit of a trigger warning here that there are discussions of poor mental health, suicide and grief. So therefore, if you're struggling with any of the content, then please reach out to a trusted professional. There will be some links in the description box, so feel free to click on those links and reach out. If you're not able to do that, or you feel like that's not for you at this present moment in time, then speak to a trusted friend or family member. But these guests that we got on today are from different ends of the youth work spectrum, and they offer a really in-depth analysis of how mental health is affecting young people, in particular young boys that they're working with. They also give a analysis of their personal mental health battles and how that's affected their work with young people, but also how it's complemented it as well. So sit back and I hope you like it. So, obviously it's Men's Mental Health Day on the 19th, so I thought it'd be really good to get other male youth workers together, talk about some stuff, and just see where it goes. Keep it really informal, relaxed. If you want to go into like you as a person, you as a practitioner, do not just go for it, I think. I think it'd be good for you to introduce yourself. So, who wants to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So my name's Michael, also known as Zippy, and so I'm the Director of Ministry of Life Education, and I'm a youth worker and a teacher in alternative education, mostly in music and media.
Cool. Gavin?
Yeah, so I'm Gavin. I'm a youth worker from Monmouthshire Youth Service, and I run the Monmouth area.
Cool. I think everyone knows who I am. I'm Darryl. I'm the Workforce Development Officer, and I'll be sort of hosting this podcast. One of the biggest things that I found striking, I was doing a bit of research before doing this, and I think when I was doing some work around men's mental health a while ago, I think it must have been just shy of a decade ago, then we'd done some work around that. But the bit that suicide's the biggest killer of men, and at the time it was under 30, but now it's under 50.
Wow. Oh, it's changed, has it?
Yeah,
I thought it was 30 odd.
Yeah, because the last time we done it was 30. So just for the record, Gavin and I worked on a project a while ago, didn't we?
A long time ago.
Quite a while. Give us a bit of an overview of what we done there, Gav.
So we went into one of the secondary schools in Monmouthshire, and like we hadn't really done it before. There's always been a lot of I'd say there was like a new emphasis on mental health, which we hadn't really seen before at the time, and we are going back over a decade ago. And there was 4 or 5 of us in the youth service that were male, and we just decided to go into one of the secondary schools and do boys' mental health, how to give them the space to sit and talk. So we've seen a lot of that like lad culture, and everyone's just egging them on, aren't they? It's we're, not that we're the most sensitive souls or anything, but we just thought, if we can show the young people us being a bit vulnerable, like maybe they'll reciprocate, and that will spread amongst them. So we went into the school, did a presentation about it was a lot of stats, wasn't it, about like male suicides, and just about how to open up. So then we were chatting about some of our personal bits, weren't we? Yeah. And it was really nice. It was like this big group. There was probably about 30-40 of them. Then in the room, like they all just started opening up in front of one another, being a bit vulnerable, which was nice, rather than everyone putting a bit of a face on. Yeah. It's that was it at the time, wasn't it? But I remember leaving there feeling really good in terms of like that piece of work we'd done. It was a shame we didn't carry on really, but yeah, it was like a really nice start for us in terms of mental health stuff.
I think you feel like you achieved something then, don't you? You feel like you at least started the ball rolling more than anything. Zippy, in terms of like what you do with the Ministry of Life, predominantly who do you work with, and what are the conversations like when you're working with young people? Is mental health something that's affecting them, or is it just a byproduct? What's your sort of analysis of what you're dealing with?
Well, so I started off as a youth worker in about 2009, and we were just running small youth sessions, and it was off the back, because we just started doing it ourselves. It was an idea that we came up with a third sector organisation. We started off as just a small constituted community group, and we just used to meet with young people that didn't have anything to do. Yeah. And it just spiraled on from there, really. We started doing more youth clubs, so we went on to 2, then 3, then 4, and then we started doing accredited courses. So that gave the young people something to challenge them and something for them to try and achieve, and it gave us something to do whilst in the youth sessions. So they slowly turned into daytime sessions, and then youth provision as in education. Yeah. And we started off, we were just dealing with the kids and giving out qualifications to the kids that we were dealing with in the evening from the youth clubs. So it was all rappers and DJs and just local kids. Yeah. Now we're in delivery year, I'd say we're about 15 years into it, and about 11 years of education. So now we're getting referrals from all over the city, and the provision has changed a lot over the years. It's changed now into if somebody has struggled in mainstream education for whatever reason, that might be because of poverty, substance misuse issues, or housing, or we get a lot of people with neurodivergence, because that's becoming a lot more prevalent now, where people are identifying, are able to identify early that people have neurodiversities, where 10 years ago people had no idea why people were acting up. They go, they're just crazy, or they're just nuts, or they're misbehaving, and not really understanding the reasons why. So from my perspective, I started off teaching, and more as time's gone on, I'm dealing with mental health on a daily basis, quite frankly, and I've sort of become the school counsellor, kind of. If someone's got an issue, they'll generally send them to me. Right, get Zippy, call him in, and then it's about trying to signpost people to like services, but also trying to find out like you're not going to be able to learn until you've dealt with the problem that the young person's having in that day, because and COVID and the cost of living crisis has ramped it up dramatically. 100%. Yeah, I'm on the ground every day, and I can see young people screaming for help, and really mental health for me. People are able to talk about it more nowadays.
Do you think there's been a shift? Because before that was always the thing of trying to encourage people to talk. Are they more? I see Gav, you're nodding your head. What are we seeing on the ground in terms of young people? Is it that they're more open, or is our role as youth workers, or with you doing some type of alternative education, Zippy, is it that we sort of have to tease that out of it? What is it? What are we doing to sort of get these conversations going?
I think a lot of them are more self-aware, like you said, like they're able to bring it up. I do still think there is somewhat of a stigma around it, or sometimes what I find is they might go in the extreme opposite in terms of using it as a bit of a crutch, maybe. Which poses its own problems, because then they'll be like, well, I can't do this because I've got mental health, or I can't do that, and it's trying to explain, everyone has some form of positive or negative mental health. It's you can't be happy all day every day, and that's you have to experience low times in order to appreciate when things are good. But yeah, it's a funny one on the ground, but I've noticed a huge change in the young people I work with at the moment as well. But I'm finding it's from the COVID obviously had a huge impact on everyone, but I'm seeing it in the sort of 12 to 15 range, having a real hard time with like socializing stuff, and then that's having like there's always an underlying reason why someone's acting a certain way, isn't there?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been interesting. It's difficult for a lot of people, though, I think.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it is difficult for people just to I mean, it sounds easy, doesn't it? Oh, just open up, but it's really not easy, isn't it? You know, I think all of us can agree around the table. You can't. It's not always as simple as, oh, we'll just open up. That'll solve all our issues. It's that initial step is solid. But what do you think prevents, especially young boys, doing that? What's that sort of initial step? What's the barrier, do you think?
I think they find it to be embarrassing.
Do you think?
You know, if they're in a group setting, I think one-to-one is easier to open up, isn't it? But if you're in a group setting, you don't want your peers to think that you're weak. And if they think you're weak, they can expose you, or, you know, maybe you might open yourself up to bullying, or
like an alpha male sort of complex.
Definitely, yeah.
Do you
Definitely.
think?
I think that's the difference between female and male, because we're here to talk about men's mental health, because it's something that maybe has gone by the wayside, because men are supposed to be strong. You know, that's what people are brought up to think. You know, toxic masculinity can be a thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, from my perspective, I think it is getting slightly easier to talk about, because there's a big push, isn't there, for men's mental health, with like advertising and, you know, trying to get people to open up. And I think our provision specifically, I think we're finding definitely people are getting more in touch with their emotions and a bit more open to some counselling and talking about their issues.
No, I was when I was doing the research for this, I was looking at the Movember charities. They've got this tool which I found really good, and it's called I think it's either Talk to Alec or ALEC. So ALEC stands for Ask, Listen, Encourage Action, and Check In. And I found, you know, I sort of go back to when I was a practicing youth worker, and sort of that's what we do, isn't it? We tend to sort of ask them, you know, I suppose, you know, one of the beauties that we can do, because we see them outside of school hours, we see them whilst they're socialising when they're supposed to be themselves, you know, I've always found it incumbent of us, if we see like a behaviour change, to sort of maybe open up that channel of communication. I think sometimes there's a big emphasis on, you know, or just, you know, you as an individual talk. If you're struggling, talk. But I think as a society, it would be helpful if we recognise people, you know, in their behaviour changes. You know, maybe we should be the ones to reach out and say, look, I've noticed a change in you. You know, what can I do? And sometimes, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but sometimes we make it more of a thing, and it becomes that, oh, it feels a bit strange. You know, like if you see a young person, you can definitely see that there's a behaviour change, and you know, even if over, you know, a period of time, you know, we say, oh, do you want to go upstairs and have a talk, or go in the office? And sometimes it could just be like sitting next to each other. Oh, what's going on? You know, what would your advice be if you was to see a young person, you could see a behaviour change? What's sort of the things that you would do? Because Gav, you work in an open access youth centre, don't you? And it's quite busy at the moment. And is that something you're seeing? And have you got any examples of, you know?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you see it, but it's that willingness to talk. And I've found over the years of practicing now that, because I had conflicting messages when I was like training and with other colleagues. Some will keep things very private. They don't let the young people see them as individuals. Where I found the opposite. I share some, you know, an appropriate amount, what I think is appropriate, of personal stuff, because I think to expect young people to open up to us, but we're not willing to let them know.
That's interesting. I find that, because I've heard conflicting arguments for this. Some say you should completely, you know, you're a professional, you shut yourself off, and that's you're there to deal with the young person. But what you're saying is that it's good to open up yourself and not so much like,
well, to a degree, it's, you obviously don't tell them every detail of your life type of thing, but enough to let them know that, like, I'm human, I have the same or similar struggles, and I've been quite open with stuff with the young people I work with when it's appropriate and when I feel like they're ready to hear it, because the biggest problem in my personal life, in terms of being able to talk about mental health or my mental health, it was understanding like what was the point of talking, because sometimes it's a situation you can't resolve just by talking. So what's the point of talking? But just by talking, you're sharing that burden, aren't you? And getting that message across to young people. It won't fix everything, but it'll make it feel a bit lighter.
Yeah. Hopefully you're happy to sort of to go into a little bit of detail on this, but you mentioned about what you've been through. Have you got an example of when you've sort of been able to reflect with young people and sort of give off some of your experiences? And has that enabled them to think, I really trust Gavin now, or I really trust Zippy now, and I'm able to share my stuff? Or they might even see a bit of themselves in you. What's been your experiences?
Yeah, I mean, well, my biggest thing was, it was 4 years ago. My wife died of cancer, and I've got 2 young kids. So at the time, I didn't work in the area I work in now, so I didn't just stroll in and be like, "Hey everyone, I've got a dead wife." That wasn't how I did. Because grief as well, that's a whole nother thing. Like, I had no idea how to deal with grief at the time, but yeah, talking, because talking about them isn't going to bring them back or anything. But for me, like, I love talking about my wife, Ree. And it makes a lot of people uncomfortable. So you add grief into the mix of like the whole mental health stuff. That's a whole nother level. But there are a few young people at work that know about my wife dying and the struggles I have of being like a single dad. And I've got 2 neurodiverse children as well. Like, it just keeps like adding on. But I think for me, like, I try to tell them like the way I make my way through is just by being grateful for like little things, whether it's just, it's nice weather today. Like when I'm feeling my worst, that's what I go to, is like, it's a nice day today, I get to wake up, things like that, and that helps. I think it helped me build a lot of resilience, because it's quite easy to forget how good a lot of us have it, and I'm not one of those people that push positivity, because there's toxic positivity as well, isn't there? It's like that fake it till you make it attitude.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think that's helpful either. No. But it's just being able to talk about it when you're feeling up to it as well, because there's no point in tricking young people into talking, is there? Because it won't feel genuine then, and they won't feel any better for it. I think some of the best conversations I ever had with young people was when we were driving. So a lot of people,
it's always great in the car, isn't it?
With the eye contact thing. If they don't have to look at you and they can just, you're concentrating, they're concentrating, you can just hear each other. So that for me has been like helpful.
And the pool table as well.
Yeah, that helps.
Classic youth work pool table.
I mean, So just to say, Gav, thank you for sharing that. I remember obviously when you were going through that, and now that you're able to, I don't know whether you deal with it. You just always have to live with it, I guess. And
you haven't got a choice.
No, and I don't think you ever get to the point where it's dealt with. Do you really? And
no, but it I think gives a different perspective on things. Like over the course of, like, I'm 36 now, so over the course of my life, I've struggled with depression at a couple of different points. But through counselling and talking therapies, I went twice, I think. It wasn't at all what I thought it was going to be, but I found it so helpful, and it's just given me strategies to help cope as an adult. And I haven't been back in years now, but not that there's anything to be proud of. If you need to go, you need to go.
Yeah.
And it's the same with medication. There's a lot of stigma around use of medication. I always frame it to young people saying, like, if you've just broken your arm, would you not get a cast?
Yeah, of course.
Would you not go to the doctor about that? So why are we treating mental health any different?
Yeah.
I've always been trying to spread the good word, I guess.
always. And Zippy, if you don't mind, what's been your experiences, I suppose, have you had to sort of deal with something, and what's your approach when you're working with young people? And Gav was saying about, obviously he's able to share certain things. Do you feel that's a good thing, or do you feel like that's over? What's your interpretation of what Gav was just saying about sharing experiences with young people?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Gav, thank you for sharing, and I really pass my condolences on to you. It must have been really tough, so thank you.
Thank you.
But I'm the same as Gav, really. I always share, maybe sometimes overshare, if I'm honest with you. My wife always says I overshare. But I was going to ask about counselling, actually, because my mum passed away in January from cancer as well, and she'd been ill for 20 years with MS. And I've actually got counselling today at 3:30, so when I leave here, that's where I'm going to be going. I've found counselling. I've had it a couple of times in my life, really, and I struggled with depression as well. So, and I was quite a naughty kid. I used to get suspended from school a lot, and I just didn't really get on with mainstream schooling, and I had some substance misuse issues when I was younger as well. You know, I used to like partying, and I would stay out late all night, and parents would be wondering where I am, and so realistically, I think youth work is the thing that saved me.
Do you think?
No, I know it is, definitely is. I met a band of brothers, really, and it's not just me that it saved either. It saved loads of us, all the people that I work with.
How did it save you? What was the catching point for them to save you?
Well, it's having something to work towards, isn't it? Something to dream for, and about, like I say, people that are rooting for you and want the best for you, and there's nothing like helping someone else to forget about your own problems. There really isn't.
Right. Okay.
It really isn't. It's just because you're concentrating on helping them. Yeah. And as soon as you're helping someone else, you're not thinking about your own issues.
Is that like a sense of purpose then, is it? Do you think, you're helping them and it makes you feel good, doesn't it?
100%. I mean, I would say I'm kind of addicted to it. Again, my wife last night, she was saying to me, you need to switch off, because because we're entrepreneurial as well. It's our organisation, and it's always I could be doing more. Why don't I find another grant? Why don't I apply for this? I'll send this email. I'll speak to this parent. I'll do this. And it's just, and I'm always on the phone, and I'm always on my laptop, and I'm just scheming and trying to generate something, and it does get addictive. But yeah, sometimes you really have to take a back seat with regard to giving yourself over too much, because obviously when you've got a young family, or a wife, or a family, other family and friends, you've got to make sure to make time for yourself as well.
100%. And it's one of the things we neglect so often, isn't it? We think about others, and I think that's part of our sort of youth work values, isn't it? We're just constantly thinking of other people. I think that building relationship, and we go home with those things sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Like you said, you bring your laptop home, but also mentally, and I don't know how you guys find it, and I haven't been practicing for a while, so this maybe have changed, but where I used to work, I used to have a bit of a drive home, and in my head, I'd almost replay the day.
Yeah. Well, it's the reflection side of things, isn't it? It's always important to reflect, but I wanted to just add the just the stereotype of man being provider. I still feel that, in terms of I'm the bloke, I need to provide for my family, and then it's finding that balance of so I'm my kid's only parent now, so I need to be there for them. I physically need to be there more than if my wife was still here. So how do I provide financially and be there emotionally, physically, and all those other ways? Because I think society has become more progressive in terms of anyone can do anything, can't they? Yeah. But I think as a man, I still feel that pressure of, if I'm not providing, I would feel less of a man, I think.
Agreed.
Do you think?
Yeah. It hasn't happened, but I know there's been friends that live in London, for instance, and their partner might earn twice what they earn, and they feel really insecure about it. I'm why? I'd love to be taken care of. That'd be great, yeah. But there is some weird innate thing, and I don't know where it's come from, because I guess we emulate the previous generation, don't we? Like, I come from like the old nuclear family. Like, dad went out and provided, my mum stayed home. I was lucky enough to have that at home, but I think a lot of young people and a lot of my friends in my personal life, I'm the only one whose parents are still together. So I don't know how I find that a little bit hard to translate into my practice, because I don't have the same experiences as some of the young people, and I think a lot of the my colleagues as well maybe grew up going through youth services, because I never accessed a youth service growing up. So I've noticed a bit of a space in between, you know, because I think part of the problem with the perception of the youth services is that we always just work with naughty kids, and in order for us to work with young people, we have to see them in deficit, where I try to work with them from a place of how can we help you move onwards and upwards. You know, I'm not focusing on the negative. You recognize it and chat about it with them if they want to, but you know, it's just that all young people are capable of so much, regardless of what their background was, and it's up to them if they want to, you know, engage with us around that stuff. But yeah, I don't know if I've gone off on a tangent.
I think I find it super interesting, because obviously, you know, youth work is based on the voluntary relationship, isn't it? They're not sort of forced into it, and it's up to them, you know, really, if they want to sort of engage with you. It's up to them if they want to, you know, open up to you, I guess. You know, Zippy, from your perspective, you're very much in sort of the daytime sort of stuff when so they don't go to the school, do they? They come to the youth centre to sort of.
It's post 16. It is
post 16, right? Okay.
So we're 16 to 25. So the whole purpose of what we're doing, we do have an open access provision, which is 1 day a week where people can just come along, use the equipment. You know, we've got decks and studios and t-shirt printers and all sorts of cool stuff that they can come and learn how to use. But the other 4 days of the week are generally education. So we do BTECs, we do BTEC level 1s and level 2s in music and media. So they get to learn how to use cameras and produce music and become DJs and graphic designers and stuff like that. So it's a strange one. It's a mixture between youth work and teaching. So it's a very, very laid back form of teaching. So BTEC is all sort of learning by doing. We tend to attract people that wouldn't necessarily go to like the big formal college. So generally, I mean, the council has like lists of people that are neat and not doing anything, not in education or training. So we get a lot of referrals, but also from hostels, from different other third sector agencies and stuff like that. And we used to recruit, but we just get referrals now. So people just word of mouth and
I imagine it's quite a popular thing, isn't it? You know, for them to learn all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we got over 70 students a year.
That's really good.
And we do lots of ancillary projects. So we do something called the Levels Up program, which is we give out grants to young people who aspiring musicians to further their careers. We do Cardiff Music Conference, which is a yearly conference where we have like over 50 performers and volunteers, and we hire out a nightclub and have guest speakers and famous people come along. And what else do we do? We've got a mobile transit van with a massive DJ booth in the back and a stage and a sound system. So we travel around all of South Wales in the summer. Let us know, Gav. We'll have to come down to Monmouth. It'd be nice.
That'd be nice.
Do a bit of a collaboration, isn't it?
That'd be lovely. Yeah, I'd love to come and see what you guys do.
I think that's key, isn't it? In anything we do, it's you know, rather than the silos, you know, it's really good to venture out. And also, the way I've always looked at it, borders don't really matter to a young person. If they come out of Cardiff, or they come out of Monmouthshire or Newport, or wherever you are in the world, they don't see the geographical divide. I think it's really good of us to, and I also think, you know, if you're qualified and skilled in that area, you're the best person to do that. Do you know what I mean? Like podcasting, I'm not skilled or qualified, and you know, I've got, you know, two very brainy people here to help me do it, and you know, and obviously we had some technical difficulties to begin with, purely because I am not. This isn't my bag at all, but it's, you know, giving it a go, and
I think you're doing a great job, mate. Well done.
Well, my life ambition to become a podcaster is one step closer, I guess. One of the things I want to pick up on, and I think probably all three of us are guilty of this, the use of social media. So one of the things I was reading on yesterday, and I actually thought it was more, so I'm quite shocked by this. A third of men say social media has a negative impact on how they feel.
Yeah.
And do you know what?
Yeah.
So I don't do TikTok because I used to go down a TikTok hole.
Yeah.
But now I probably do even worse now. I go in a Facebook, Twitter and Instagram hole. And I do think it's right. You sort of see things out there and you almost want to be that and know you can never be that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you feel like everybody is doing better than you.
Yeah.
And it's not real, is it? Because you only see the highlights that they're willing to show you. So what it's done is made everybody feel bad about who they are. Like, I'm sat in my house, right? And, I'm comfortable, the heating's on, I got some food. Really, I should be happy. But I'm looking at someone else and going, oh, they just released a sick tune.
Yeah.
Oh, why haven't I done that?
Yeah.
Even though I did it a few months ago or whatever. Yeah. But you're feeling like, oh, they're doing better than me. And it really, again, am I addicted to it? Probably.
Yeah.
I'm 41 years old. I shouldn't be addicted to social media. What am I doing? But it's like it is addictive.
Yeah, it is. It's designed to be like that, isn't it? I think it's changed everyone's attention span. It's gone from, like being able to sit down and watch a film to I can't watch a TV show without getting my phone out, or it's you're doubling up on what you're doing all the time. Our attention span's gone from I could sit down and read a book in a day to I can't stop looking at my phone. Like I feel like I want to look at my phone now that we talk about it. I was like, I haven't looked at Instagram today.
Yeah.
But it's mad as well though. I've never really spoke about this, I don't think, but in terms of like body image as well, because like I've always been heavier set, and as I've gotten older I've found it harder to like keep the weight off, but I haven't taken my kids swimming ever because I'm too embarrassed about taking my top off.
Wow.
Like that's nuts, isn't it? I've got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I know my son is going to start swimming soon, and since I heard that, I'm like, I need to go swimming with him. But I'm already like dreading that, just taking my top off. Even at like I'm tattooed as well, and I haven't had my torso tattooed for many years because I was so nervous about taking my top off.
Wow, man.
And it's weird, isn't it? Like when you put it into like years, like I've stopped myself doing something because on social media I see everyone with like a lean physique or just what I consider better than mine.
See, I wouldn't have expected that of you. It's like you look at you and you hold yourself very well and you seem like a very confident bloke, and then but underneath it all you've still got these idiosyncrasies where you're like, yo, I'm totally nervous. You know?
It absolutely terrifies me, but that's that whole comparison thing again, isn't it?
It's interesting that we feel like that when we're adults.
How much worse must it feel for a young person?
Yeah, and you're looking at a lot of young people going through their development stages. Obviously, boys develop later than females. And I think growing up I was the same. I mean, I am confident to get my body out, but there are times, and I've been like working in the garden and someone comes wanting to come through, I've put my top on and things like that. And I wonder if social media contributes to that, but if we're feeling like that.
But imagine though, like as well, like I think we all grew up in a time where the internet wasn't so prevalent. Yeah. But imagine trying to figure out like if you're normal now and your only reference is you're Googling whatever it might be, and then how are you meant to know what's real and what's not? Yeah. At least when we were younger, it might be that you could say something if you felt up to it, but I can't imagine being 15 now and like say something's changed with your body or something, then you're Googling it and you might not be getting the right information. Yeah, and I think it goes back to like not just what you Google as well, but there are sites that show a different a particular style of male. Yeah. You look at like pornography, for instance.
they all look.
It's not real, is it?
It's not real.
None of it's real.
No, and you can put yourself in a young person's shoes and think, I don't look like that. What, should I look like that? That's not me. And then they have to grow up thinking, when does this change happen? And that change might never happen.
Yeah.
And I think that that contributes to the way people feel as well.
I was always gutted I couldn't grow facial hair until I was like mid-20s, and I was like, I just looked like a child. Just something silly like that, like I felt like I didn't look like a proper bloke without having facial hair. It's just something stupid like that.
So yeah, I suffered with the opposite really. I've always been, because I'm quite tall. I'm 6'3", 4", and I've always been really skinny. And so you'd get bullied for being skinny. And then recently, when my mum passed away, I gave up smoking. So I gave up smoking when I was 40. And then, I just ate and ate and ate. So I started piling on the pounds, and now my friends are all calling me fat. So it's like, I can't win. I'm either one or the other, and I think one thing that goes unsaid is like, and I've been one of the biggest people to do this, is like making up like nicknames for people and like teasing and like, oh, it's banter or it's fun, and like, you base your whole life around like, some people, like me and my friends especially, have only ever communicated mockery.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't realise till you're older, and like I've realised now, I'm like, why have I been calling that person that name their whole life? Like, that's not their name. Like, and it's really frustrating for them, and they've been saying for 20 years, stop calling me that, and I'm like, and it's not cool, because you're putting them. It's almost like it's normal to just put people down all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just the culture. It is a British culture. I'm sure it happens in other countries as well. But like,
it's such a fine line, isn't it, between that banter and that sort of hurting someone's feelings, isn't it? And who controls that, isn't it? If you're the person giving the banter, how can you be completely sure that it is banter and not overstepping the mark, isn't it? And you don't know how they feel.
I'm ashamed of the way I behaved when I was younger, if I'm honest with you. I mean, I've never really said it to people, but like, I remember being in sort of a bit of a bully sandwich where I would be bullied in school, and then the only way that I knew how to react would be to say bully someone else, so it was, I would get bullied and bully at the same time, and it was horrible, and I spent most of my life being really, really unhappy, and I think that's why I, like I say, turned to substance misuse and things like that, and why I was so naughty in school, because I just didn't feel confident, and it's taken me till even now, I'm still coming out of things like, I'm still learning each day how to like handle life better and not feel so upset all the time. But I will say counselling definitely helps.
Like one of the biggest things that we do in a youth work profession is supervision. We reflect. That's one of the sort of founding sort of principles of what we do. And I always feel like you don't need to be a professional to do that. What is there ways we can do this with young people? So you're saying like you've only just started to realise about your behaviour and things like that, and how that might affect other people. But it's almost like that reflection in action that young people need, isn't it? And it's tough, isn't it? Like what is our role?
It's tough though, because I think some of that comes with age. I don't think I was that reflective when I was younger.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older, I'm more comfortable in my own company, and I enjoy the quiet more, where I think when you're younger, you're trying to find your place and your identity, and you have to try a lot, don't you, to reach that point, and some people never reach it. So it's young people are just developing all the way up until 25. Your brain doesn't develop until, does it? So it's really difficult to say you can give everyone techniques in that, but to actually practice them every day, that's really difficult, and it takes a lot of commitment and maturity, I think. So yeah, we always give out the odd bits of knowledge, don't we, in terms of you could try this, you could do that, but it's a lifelong thing. I don't think there's one thing that does it. It's different for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I was reading, so the charity Mind, they done a study back in 2009. It was an initial study, and they've published a further report 10 years on, and I think it's called something like 10 years on, looking at mental health and almost like a comparison exercise between 2009 and 2019. What do you think? Have you guys read it before or no? So do you think incidents of mental health suicides increased, or do you think it's decreased? I read it yesterday.
I actually wanted to bring that up, suicide, because you mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast. But so listen, there's been loads of people that I've known briefly that have committed suicide over the years, but two main ones I can remember, which I'd like to bring up. One was a student of mine.
Wow.
And that was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. It really was. And obviously I'm not going to name any names or anything, but it was the social pressure that got him. It was the pressure of moving from young person to adult, and getting a place, getting a partner, having bills, and not having the opportunities to go out there and earn enough money to be able to cover those bills, the cost of living. But this is going back a few years ago. This is before the cost of living crisis. Things were already difficult, and that was one of the most devastating things in my youth work career. But also another one was, so it's not just young people as well, it's adults, and a youth worker that I was very good friends with also committed suicide. Love him. And this is what you mean about you don't know what's going on inside somebody, right? They're the most happy, smiley person, right? Big grin, life of the party, so talented, charismatic, has what you would see is they've got everything, you know? But underneath, you can't tell when someone's drastically unhappy, and sometimes they don't see another way out.
No, and it's interesting because I've probably gone into double figures now. The amount, the people I know who've died by suicide now, and I'm trying to think out of those ones if I've seen any of them coming. But interestingly, I'd done some training on suicide prevention. God, I can't remember when it was. It was a while back, and do you know what? I didn't say it until that point, but it must have been around 10 years ago, maybe. Oh God, probably more. I walked in on my dad trying to, kill himself basically, and you go into, from someone trying to react, you go into reactive mode, and we dealt with it, the medical side of things, it wasn't anything like, it was he was basically drinking this substance basically that would eventually over a period of an hour would kill him. Managed to sort of get that reversed, but interestingly, afterwards we got it all dealt with, and it was weird. I think we just sort of forgot about it, generally just stopped the incident, and that was it. There wasn't any, nothing that my dad sort of accessed, because obviously to get to that point, something must have been going on. I probably know what was going on, and maybe that was my cue, and it was a miscue to sort of do something to say, look, you've tried this, we've stopped you, but actually, what can we do so you don't have these thoughts, but you don't act on these thoughts, but there was no cue beforehand that would indicate that was going to happen. It was so out of the blue, and the weird thing is, I was due to go. I wasn't. I sort of walked in because my dad wasn't expecting me, so he had intentions for it to be done and dusted.
Wow.
But yeah, it's an awful thing, and now that it's the biggest killer for men under 50 now, not just 30, it just shows. But that report shows that the initial report was a report that highlighted it was the biggest killer of under 30s. Now it's under 50. That's 20 extra years.
It's insane when you think about cancer and how many people that takes out.
Yeah.
That it's suicide is the biggest killer. It's not a good statistic, is it? And
it's avoidable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's I know that the person doing it might not think that. And I working as a as a youth worker as well, I've known young people that have unfortunately died by suicide, And you do. You go back and you think, what the hell could I have done? And I to this day now won't know what I could do.
Well, it's a series of things, though, isn't it? I don't think there's any. We had a couple not too long ago in Monmouthshire, and I think about them all the time.
Yeah.
And I do the same thing in terms of wondering, could we have done this? Could we have done that? But it's so many things, but it's a lot of like little things. It's just like checking in on people, or making somebody feel heard and like a part of something, because it's very easy out of sight, out of mind, isn't it? Or if they're posting online all this happy stuff to try and make themselves feel better, it's just checking on your mates, isn't it, really? But then there's a lot of pressure around doing that as well. It's a really vicious circle, because then I know I'm guilty of not checking in with people because my life is so busy.
Yeah.
And then you hear something bad's going on, you're like, oh, I wasn't there for that. Like, I found out my mate's mum had cancer and she'd been having treatment for a while. I was like, I should have known that.
Yeah.
So where was I? And then you get a bit hard on yourself, or I do. So it's a vicious circle, but it's just trying your best. That's all you can do. We you can't save every single person, but just try and be a good friend if you can.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I agree. It was one of the things I note. In the report that I was looking at, it was 2 in 5 men admitted to regularly feeling low. So that's regularly. So that was their main feeling that they were feeling, and I was quite at first I was shocked, but then now I'm shocked there's not more.
Yeah.
The amount the suicide rates.
Yeah.
How do we notice when people are feeling low? What is it?
I mean, with being withdrawn, I guess, like if sometimes you can tell when someone wants help.
Yeah.
Sometimes, because they'll tell you, and not necessarily with words, like it's their actions, isn't it? But yeah, it's a really difficult one, especially because, like we say about men's mental health specifically, is there's a whole stigma about you're supposed to be strong, and you're not supposed to show weakness, and there it is. That's the difficult part. I think people, hopefully, us as youth workers and teachers and stuff can sort of be approachable. That's what we want to do. And I think using real life experience is really important. I personally would advocate for that, because if you have lived, for me, the best youth workers are the ones who've been through it themselves.
Yeah.
And I know that all the people that I work with, God, we've all been through various different things. And I think to have someone who's sort of had a bit of a cushy life to sort of say to you, oh yeah, why didn't I signpost you here, or come here, I'll chat to you about it, and they'd have no idea what they're talking about. So I always use real life experiences. I always say, listen mate, I was where you were one day, and it's about trying to be a positive male or female role model. That's how I like to do. Lead from the front, show them an example of what they want to be like, look, this is how I did it, and this is what you need to do if you want to do that. And just sort of lead from the front, really.
No, I find the whole thing fascinating in the sense of I think we're in a quite a privileged position, as we've got direct contact with young people. We generally can make change, and I think maybe we can sort of close on this, is look at what is our role moving forward. What can we do to try our best to make things better, or is that something that we can never ever do? I don't know.
Well, I think what Zippy just said in terms of being that role model, that's all we can do. That everyone, the only way you learn is by observing or doing. So just being the best us we can be for them, for the young people. It's not always going to work, but you got to try.
Absolutely.
I'd also say that one shoe doesn't fit all.
Yeah.
Everybody's got different ways of learning, different ways. It's your job as a youth worker to find out what makes that kid tick and how to help them. We're always learning, we're always changing, and it's like, diversification, we call it in teaching. It's like not everyone learns the same way. So find out, and just try your best, isn't it? That's all you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I've asked all the guests this in every podcast, so I'll ask the same, even though this is a theme one, and I think it's always good to end on a positive. It's quite a bleak subject, isn't it? Let's be honest. Yeah. There seems to be, there's winners and losers in many things, but it seems mental health is the biggest thing that we lose on, isn't it? And but with that in mind, what is there to look forward to? I ask everyone this: what's there to? What are we looking forward to?
Tomorrow, getting to do the job every day. It's never the same thing. It's always interesting, and I just always look forward to the next day, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm the same. I can't wait to get cracking, and just finding a new challenge and then cracking that, and then finding another one. Really, just.
Someone listened to this. I know I said I'd end on the last point, but I'm going to do it on this point. Someone listening to this might be listening to it because they're struggling with their mental health, or they're on the cusp of low feelings, dark moods, and all that type of stuff. What advice would you give to that person listening to this podcast, regardless of what profession, whether it's a young person or a practitioner? What advice would you give to them today in terms of what they do next after listening to this?
Well, I would start even before that. I would say don't wait until you're in crisis to seek help. So, you can chat to anyone at any point. Don't let it get to the point where you feel so low you might want to take your own life. There's loads of services, isn't there? Like that's the Shout 24/7, the tech service. Yeah. Which are good. They have trained volunteers that will keep communicating with you over text. There's obviously like your Samaritans and Papyrus. There's loads of different helplines, but it's recognizing that you don't want to get in that state in the first place. So trying to keep on top of it all the time rather than waiting is probably my biggest thing.
Yeah. Just don't suffer in silence. Like a problem shared is often a problem halved, so don't be afraid to talk to someone. Youth workers are trained in listening, and they do have some life experience and can probably point you in the right direction. We've got in Cardiff we've got Mind as well, which are another good charity. Don't suffer in silence is my advice. Just try and open up if you can.
Yeah, it is sad. And I suppose my last message to anyone listening is, if you're seeing someone and you notice a behaviour change, or you notice, persistent low moods, or you just get a hunch, I just don't think there's any drama in trying to open up a conversation. There's a really good, I'm not sure what it is, but on the Movember website, there's some conversation starters, and I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous to think, how to start a conversation, but some of those prompts were really good because they weren't really intrusive. It's not you gone to someone and say, tell me about your mental health. What a big question. It's very small. I would urge anyone listening to this is to have a look at that. Maybe I'll put it into the description box when this is uploaded, but please have a look at it. And I suppose the biggest thing I just want to do as well before closing is thanking both of you for opening up. And I hope that this encourages people to, open up themselves. Also, if they're seeing people who are struggling in supporting that person as well. So, massive thanks.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you both.
For updates on new podcasts, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the notification button. If you want to be featured on the podcast, email ets@wlga.gov.uk.